This is Gauss. Is Gauss. 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 Gauss.
What? What the fuck?
Hey, what's going on, all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? This is Vance from the ever-popular web series of Warframe God Builds, and it is once again time to review yet another Warframe that has come out, and boy, does my build give new definition to the phrase shake, rattle, and roll. This is Gauss, and thank you, Quite Shy, for informing me that it's pronounced Gauss instead of Gauss, because I was honestly kind of pronouncing Gauss warthogs the same way in the Halo series. Fanboying aside, there is a lot to love about this particular Warframe. It brings so much compromise to the table, and compromise in the form of blending kind of elements that other Warframes already bring to the table. For instance, the Mach Rush is being compared to Volt Speed, and justifiably so, except for Volt Speed is a buff that goes on for an X amount of time, and you can literally just hold this power for as long as you want to go, and that's kind of a cool thing. I wish if it were something that you held, that it just went indefinitely until you pressed again, but it seems to go on for as long as you hold it, with a multiplier to the time that it's going for. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I mean, I don't have anything to complain about with this power. It's not used for offense, it's definitely used for transportation, and when it is used for offense, it's a quick little CC thing, which kind of defeats the purpose of the third ability, the only one that I can really have an issue with. The second ability, which is kinetic plating, is similar in comparison to Rhino's Iron Skin, except for this is also based off of a duration, in which I would tell you that building for power strength is just not a good idea with Gauss. You're going to want to definitely build towards duration, and kinetic plating is going to last really long when you do that. And then finally we arrive at the third ability, which is the one that I have the most complaint with, Thermal Sunder. It says that it siphons kinetic energy from the area, charging the battery and inflicting cold status on nearby enemies. Hold and reverses the process, draining the battery and inflicting heat status on nearby enemies. So, I mean, it status procs enemies for cold damage, freezing them if you just click it, and if you hold it, it'll status proc them with heat, and then if you click and hold in the same area, then you get a blast damage, which is CC. And when you can already do that ability, when you can already CC enemies with your first ability cast, it just kind of defeats the purpose of this being a thing. I would rather see him be able to produce a small scale frost globe, and with fire I would like him to be able to produce a small scale ember ring of fire. That would be really unique. I think that buff is not too far off the table for where this Warframe needs to be perfect. And when you combine abilities, I would rather see something crazy like an Arcwing ability. I think it's not quite sure. Ah, yes, it's the Elytron with its ability, the Thumper. So if you know how Thumper works, you basically deploy it and it's like a missile that blows up, and there's kind of like a transparent sphere in which it appears to look like missiles just ricocheting in and out of the bubble. So if you did something like that with Gauss, I think it would be utterly absurd to use in practice, and I would resort to using it a lot more, because I just utterly do not touch it as is. With his ultimate Redline, Gauss pushes the battery beyond the Redline, supercharging his abilities and setting fire rate, attack speed, and reload speed, and holster rate into overdrive. When past the Redline, bolts of arcing electricity dance periodically from Gauss exploding in Moss when the ability is deactivated. See, this is a little bit lackluster. This is something that I definitely don't use as often either, and I don't think that anything necessarily needs to be changed, but I think that the drain rate needs to be decreased, and I also believe that the arcing electricity should go out regardless of whether you're past the red line or not. The name is called Redline, and I mean, if you could just keep it at the red line, the bolt of electricity should be going out regardless, but if you're at the red line, they're going to do the maximum amount of damage, which it's minimal damage as is. It's not like the greatest thing in the world. This is probably one of the least favorited ults of mine. I don't think that it really serves much of a purpose. If this could be contributed to every single Warframe around you, like if you could increase their attack speed, their reload rate, everything, if this were just a shareable ability similar to Wisp and her first ability, then I would definitely be all for this and be using it a lot more than what I am. But as far as the kit goes, I think that Thermal Sunder needs to be relooked at, and maybe you should take my suggestion on that, because I think that would be an incredible idea. And then Redline just needs modified a little bit, and this guy is just fucking perfect. Okay, so let's get into the build for this mumbo jumbo, shouldn't we? So everything's kind of focused around his sprint ability. You need to be able to sprint very quickly to keep that red line up whenever you're using your ult. Not that I do it too often, but because of this build, I'm able to do it a lot more effectively when I do it. So sprint boost is necessary along with coaction drift. And trust me, as soon as you load into a mission, you're going to need to start sprinting. Even if you do not use your mock dash, just do a normal sprint and get your red line as charged up as you can, because why that's important is it's going to contribute to your second ability, your plating. Your plating gets drained, and that's effectively the only way you can mitigate damage in higher waves of content, which I'll elaborate on a little bit later on. But for the sake of continuing this explanation, you're going to want to focus on duration. So you've got prime continuity, narrow-minded, and I guess that's it right for the duration mods, but definitely continuity and narrow-minded. Adaptions for absorbing a little bit more damage, because even though you have damage mitigation, if you don't notice that your plating has fallen off in time, hopefully this can absorb a little bit more incoming damage for you. Prime flow, I mean, by now we should know that this is just a staple for essentially any Warframe unless they don't need energy consumption too much. Vitality is also going to help with the adaption, so that way you don't get one-shotted in higher waves of anything. Rolling guard is very important here. Specifically, now let's get one thing straight. I built this loadout entirely around being able to take down Profit Taker efficiently on your own. So rolling guard is going to be really, really effective for the Profit Taker fight, because you essentially have 3 different methods of dealing with incoming damage, and this is one of them. So rolling guard is something you can pop while you're trying to cast your ability. Not that you're going to need to worry about it too much, because casting your plating is very quick. So Hunter Adrenaline will help supply you with energy when you do get damaged. I definitely recommend that. And then Vigorous Swap is not something that you need if you're not going to be fighting Profit Taker. So let me repeat that. If you have no intention of fighting Profit Taker with Gauss, then don't even worry about Vigorous Swap. Arcane Avenger I put on here so that we can increase our damage critical chance. Again, that has to do with Profit Taker. You can swap that out for like Energize or Grace, whatever you want there. Guardian is Arcane Enhancement that I've used to give him more armor when he's damaged. So not only am I returning energy, but I'm also returning armor from incoming damage. So let's get into the weapons. Well, I hate to use the signature weapons every time new Warframes come out with one, and by the way, I've got to say, this model sucks so much. I really, really hope you guys get to work on some Tenogen rifle skins so I can replace this horrible thing, because it is flat out ugly. But the Exceltra, I went probably the most hardcore into this weapon with Forma as I possibly could. And one of the things that I ended up using specifically because it complements Gauss is the Amalgam Serration, because it helps with sprint speed. Then you have your split chamber, your heavy caliber, your infected clip, which are all kind of staples that we've used in the God builds, but Hellfire is the different thing here because we want to put gas and cold damage on so that we can fight the Prophet Taker with Prime Cryo rounds, and then the Vital Sense, the Point Strike. Very standard stuff being used here, but it's also very expensive. And I know that you're probably gonna think that you don't want to go that expensive, but if you want to kill Prophet Taker quickly and efficiently, this is definitely the way to go. Same can be said about my kit gun. It is built using the Tomb Finger chamber, the Slap Needle loader, and the Haymaker grip in case you want to replicate it yourself. But I've showcased Hope Ender before in the past, but I haven't had it as upgraded as it is now. So if you notice now, I have 6 Forma in this as well, and that's because I went with very expensive mods: Hornet Strike, Prime Pistol Gambit, Prime Target Cracker, Magnum Force, Convulsion, Pathogen Rounds, Prime Heated Charge, and a Barrel Diffusion, along with a Pax Charge. I'm no longer using the Pax that I used to. I think it was Pax Bolt on Headshot. You could shoot out torrents that would seek out other people's heads. This one's more efficiently just because you never have to reload. It's always just charging the battery, and you just get to fire like it's a bottomless clip. So again, another really smooth weapon to be using against Prophet Taker, but it's also very strong when used against other forces in the game as well. So you're doing heat, radiation, and corrosive with this one. And then for your melee, I actually resorted to using Redeemer Prime, and I put another Forma into the previous build. So I have showcased this weapon in the past, but I also slapped in another Forma. So I've got 4 Forma with this one. It's Shocking Touch, Northwind, Sacrificial Steel, Prime Fever Strike, Organ Shatter, Prime Fury, Blood Rush, and Prime Pressure Point. Now, at some point, I would love to replace Sacrificial Steel with a Riven mod. I just don't have it right now, and truth be told, I only play Warframe when I have content to cover, because my life has been very busy as of late. But we are going to need the Bullet Dance stance mod, and the reason why this is important is because you can spam shoot your Redeemer Prime just by tapping the trigger, or not even tapping the trigger, but tapping the melee functionality. And when you hold, I mean, you can do it very quickly. So I feel like Bullet Dance is a necessity for this weapon. It's not entirely required, but you're going to be a lot better off being more efficient with your combat using that. Now for lenses, this is also important too, because now we're going to get to our second invincibility frame, which is using the Vizarin lens. There's a ability within the Vizarin lens called the Protective Dash. It says allies hit by Void Dash are granted immunity from damage for 5 seconds and healed 60% for over 5 seconds. Now we already have some wonderful attachments for our operator, and if you haven't seen all of the things that we're using for our operator, I highly suggest you go back in time, go down the list of God builds, and look for the Warframe God builds operator, because that will show you how to be an incredibly strong operator. Not only durable, but also capable of handling level 155 heavy gunner units. And this just complements the build even further. So while it does help your teammates when you dash through them, it also helps you when you dash through your own Warframe. So this will give you your second invincibility frame bonus. You have the Rolling Guard, you have the Protective Dash, and then you also have the damage mitigation from armor plating. This is going to be incredible, not to mention the fact that there's other passives within here that do this Warframe a blessing, and that's the Mending Soul. The next 4 revives are instantaneously, so as you're sprinting to someone who's downed, let's say they're pretty far away, but because you're Gauss, you can make it there very quickly, and you don't have to worry about holding the button. You can just start the hold, the revive function, and they'll get up immediately. That's incredible for this Warframe. The synergy is just so perfect with all the weapons and perks that we're using. It's hard to avoid replicating this build. I really find it hard for someone to come up with anything better suited for the game. Now, the only thing that I really lack with this entire setup is the Exceltra tends to use a lot of ammo. So how I'm countering that is I'm using a Carrier Prime, and I am basically using it for its ammo case. That way, whenever it uses its vacuum and it sucks up all the ammo around me, it'll also convert that ammo into, you know, like if it's pistol ammo, it'll convert it to rifle ammo. That way I never run out. So all I gotta do is just keep killing things, and eventually things will drop ammo that I can use to keep using my Exceltra. Now for the Sentinel weapon, this isn't a necessity. I just feel like this is the best Sentinel weapon in the game. So Volclock is the ribbon that I chose to put on here, which does heat damage and toxin on top of a Vigilante Fervor, Vigilante Offense, Vigilante Supplies. Now the reason why I'm using these is because it with 3 sets within with 3 mods within this whole set, you have the 20% chance to enhance critical hits from primary weapons. This is really going to help Exceltra. I mean, this is really gonna help Exceltra. And I miscounted here because I actually have 4 of the mods within this set, and I built this whole setup specifically for Gauss, because if you see configuration A, this is probably what you're used to seeing me roll with in previous videos, but this is an enhanced crit build. It really does push Exceltra into in-game content, and I've gone so far as to fighting like level 120s with this thing, and it's still put in a lot of work. It's not one of the best rifles in the game, but for fighting Profit Taker and anything else that's in your way, it's going to bring it down in a significant, efficient amount of time. So I've used that word efficient a lot, but it definitely serves its purpose with this whole setup. And that pretty much concludes my entire loadout for Gauss, and I've had so much fun with this guy. I'm going to have to disagree with all the other content creators and say rip Volt, because he can essentially do just as much as Volt, if not more. The only thing that he lacks is that whole damage amplifier while shooting through a Volt shield, but I mean, aside from that, he's really got no mass ultimate ability, but he just doesn't need it. I mean, his abilities complement the weapons that you're using so well that you're not going to need it in combat. You're not going to need a electric charge of any sort. You can just sprint, CC everything, you know, load it full of just ammo dump it for no reason at all, because you aren't going to have to worry about ammo. You're not going to have to worry about CC. If you're careful, you're not going to have to worry about dying. He's so well-rounded. I feel like he does replace a lot of Warframes. Not just Volt, but I mean, this is a good replacement for Rhino players as well. And this is coming from someone whose second favorite Warframe in the game is Rhino, so it's difficult for me to tell you that. But I digress. Excellent Warframe, and I've got a few announcements to make at this point in the video. I wanted to state for the record that there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing outside of Warframe, and I feel like the bulk of my audience only watches my video for Warframe content, and that is such an undermine of my entire ability as a YouTuber. I am a writer. I just wrote a novel which is finished, and I'm working on getting it published. I am an illustrator. I do speed paints, which I think you guys would find are pretty entertaining if you want to watch that playlist. I'm an animator, and I'm going to be trying to bring you an original video in which I have 2 cartoon characters, one of which you recognize from a comic book series, and another which is completely new, someone you've never seen before, someone who's written from my universe. That is the animator portion of me. And finally, the video editing is something I do every time I upload to YouTube, so you know where my skills lie there. But I wanted to get that message out to you guys. I have art. I have all of my art that's on clothes that you can buy from teespring.com. The novel's coming out. There's a hentai comic book that I'm working on. There's a lot of big stuff that I'm doing outside of Warframe, so I highly encourage you to watch other videos besides the God Build series. Tune into the speed paints. Sometimes I include very intensive lore videos, and they're very informative. They're definitely gonna give you a head start whenever you get interested in the universe that I've wrote, and it's a big universe. It's comparable to Marvel or DC, so don't get it twisted. It's not just one book, it's not just one trilogy, it could be a whole series. And I encourage other writers, illustrators, voice actors, anyone to join my Discord and be active in this conversation, because at some point I do want to get my fans involved. I want to give all of you guys an opportunity to voice characters, draw assets, write storylines, you name it. The possibilities are endless. Thank you so much for watching up until this point, and until next time, this has been Vance signing out. Peace.